Okay, hello class. Today we're going to be doing is buttons. So what buttons are is when I run this applet, I'm going to click outside the rectangle and I'm going to click inside the rectangle. Now the other one is when I click this green rectangle, it'll magically show up somewhere else. 400 by 400, any XY location. And the width is always the same. It is random location. And also, whenever I repaint, it moves. So if I click outside, it moves by 20 every time I repaint. And if I click the image, it also redraws. So what we're going to do here is look by line. So I have all my import statements. I also implement MouseListener so I can get all the actions that the mouse does. I set up my click XY so I know those values. And then I'm also setting up my XY width length for my button. And notice how I'm calling them woohoo button. So it's woohoo button X, woohoo button Y, woohoo button width, woohoo button height. Because then when I want to go and find, so find up here, and then replace, I can replace woohoo button with a whole different name. So funny button. So just funny button, yeah. And I can change the name of all of the variables associated with the woohoo button, which makes life so much easier. And then I also have rect1 clicked, so it should be woohoo button clicked, but that's okay. And then I have another button here, which I just named something different. In init, I'm setting up the size and width of these, so I'm going to set up the woohoo button to actually be 100, 100. So when I compile and run this now, my buttons is actually a lot bigger and a lot easier to hit. And notice because it's a variable, it changes anywhere inside the rectangle, it does move, which is nice. So then I have my other button, and I'm adding a mouse listener to the init. Now in my paint, every time I repaint, I'm increasing by X. I don't want to do that anymore, but I just want to show you that that does exist. I'm setting the color to be green, and I'm filling a rectangle inside those XY width lengths so I can actually visually see the button. I don't have to do this, but you should do it so the user knows where to click. And then I'm having an if statement if they clicked in the rectangle or outside the rectangle. And then I'm setting the color to be red and drawing the other rectangle and doing the same thing. Then I'm saying when the mouse is clicked, which actually this should just be, I'm just going to help you guys out. It should be mouse pressed. So now when I run the program, when I press it, it instantly goes. So I click down and then I release. Whereas before, it was when I released or halfway through the release, it's clicked. Which there is a delay if the thing's moving. So now when I click, it triggers a mouse event called ME that stores all the data with that mouse click. So I'm saying get the X and get the Y and set it to my mouse click XY. Then what I'm doing is I'm using this if statement. What this if statement says is I have a rectangle, and this will be on the test. I have a rectangle. This rectangle is at X, Y, width, and length. My click is going to be A, comma, B, X, Y value. So what we're seeing here is AX and BY. So X has to be greater than X, which means this X value has to be to the right of X. It also has to be to the left of this value, where this value is X plus W. So X plus W, my AX value has to be less than that. So what that means over here is mouse click X is greater than the woohoo button X, and mouse click X is less than the width and the X. And then I do the same thing with a Y, where BY is greater than Y, or I can also write it as Y is less than by, and I can also write this as y plus length And so by is less than y plus length. Does the same thing. That's how you set up this if statement, which I already gave to you, so you don't have to know it. If I click on it, I reset the x and y value. Otherwise, it's just false. And then down here, my upgrades click doesn't do anything. And this makes it false. So what I want to do is I want to change my upgrade button. So mouse click the upgrades button to actually do something. And on this one, I'm actually going to be implementing the sounds code. So I'm going to be getting this audio clip and importing it over to the top. So I'm going to scroll up to the top and declare the variable right here. And then I'm going to be initializing the audio file with John.au, as shown in the previous movie. And then what I want to do is I want to play it every time I click the button. So I'm going to go down to my mouse clicked, and every time I click this button, I'm going to play Da Fenton's The Bomb. So now when I go into the code, and I run my buttons code, when I click the green rectangle, it just randomly places. When I click the red rectangle, let's turn up the volume a little bit.
And his name is John C.
Anyways, every time I click this button, that audio file plays.
And his name is John C.
But that's because when I clicked on this thing, it's saying Defense and Bomb, where Defense and Bomb is John.au. And please note that John.au is inside my folder. When I go to my idle game, I actually have the buttons Java. I also have the John.au. So if I were to cut and move this, please stop talking. I basically deleted the AU file. Now when I run this is the interesting thing about this. When I click on the red thing, nothing happens because it doesn't find the file. But if I move the file back in, and I click it, it still doesn't work because on compile it didn't have it there. So when I rerun the applet,
And his name is John C.
anyways, that's pretty much it. That's how I implemented sound into a button. And if I can implement sound into a button, you can pretty much put anything inside of a button. And hopefully I disturbed the class next door. We'll see you later on. Anyways, have a good one. I will see you later.